This week's podcast is brought to you by Spartan Invest. Spartan currently manages hundreds of turnkey properties across Alabama and Tennessee, and is where I personally bought my first out-of-state turnkey property. In fact, I have two properties with them now, and both tenants just renewed for another 2 years. That should tell you the quality of their team and their due diligence. If you are a first-time investor or looking to expand your real estate portfolio, check out SpartanInvest.com.
Are you tired of the 9-to-5 lifestyle? Do you want more freedom to do what you want, when you want it, without sacrificing your current income? Then this is the show for you. Every week, we dive into John's journey towards financial freedom and everything he has learned since 2014. Real estate investing, cryptocurrency, stocks, private lending, foreign residency, tax saving strategies, infinite banking, assets protection, and much more. Now, here is your host, the founder of the Wealth and Freedom Nexus, John Rickgarn.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're listening to this. This is John Rickgarn, your host, as always, of the Wealth and Freedom Nexus podcast. And today I brought on a great guest that I was actually introduced by a mutual friend of ours. So it was actually kind of the first time that someone said, hey, John, you should interview this person, versus I'm always kind of scoping out of, hey, I want to interview this person. I'm going to reach out to them, email them, etc. And I think overall, I don't want to give too much away. I'm going to let this guest do most of the talking. But my guest today is Mike Morawski. And I think if I could maybe shorten his story down to 3 words, it would be success, loss, and then redemption. And I think a lot of us out there, we're maybe thinking, well, gee, John, I'd love to get into investing. I'd love to invest in real estate, but well, what if I lost it all? And which could be a valid point. And I think Mike could probably even take this one step further for my viewers. But even with, losses, there can be redemption coming after that. So with that, I won't waste any more of my listeners' time. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, John, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So it was a very kind intro.
You bet. And thank you for coming on. I think it was our mutual friend, Jonathan Wee. I was on his podcast maybe 6 months ago at this point. I can't remember. And he had just sent out an introductory email to both of us, said, hey, you should have Mike on your podcast, and apologize for the few reschedulings in the way, but I'm glad we finally had this chance to connect.
Yeah, at least you're healthy again, right?
Yes, exactly. So, all right, Mike, maybe you can just kind of first start off with quick backstory of, how you got into specifically multifamily investing and go from there.
Yeah. So I was in residential real estate sales.
Okay.
And what's funny is I come from a family that no entrepreneurial background, no real estate background. And I don't know how I ever found my way into the business, really.
Okay.
Had a construction company and had heard years ago that success leaves clues.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Rohn said, if you can follow successful people, you'll cut your learning curve and grow quicker. So I was in the construction business. Woke up one morning, looked at my wife. I was burnt out, decided to sell the company, take a year off. During that time, we house hacked. Now, this is long before house hacking was sexy.
Sure.
Now everybody does it. But
right, exactly, yeah.
House hacked a couple of houses along the way, and I met a real estate agent who was really successful. And I went to him and I said, hey, Todd, listen, I'm thinking about going into real estate. I'm thinking about becoming a realtor. And he said, I think you'd be great at it. So he made me a cassette tape at the time. And I listened to that tape over and over and over again and practiced those fundamentals. So my first 8 months in the business, 9 months in the business, I sold 78 homes.
Okay.
I was the RE/MAX Rookie of the Year. I went on to build a team selling 125 homes a year and did that consecutively for about 12 years.
Wow.
2005 rolled around and decided, man, this market's going to slow down. Things are going to shift. I need to do something different and go into a different part of the industry. I love real estate. So I decided to go in the apartment business. I had done a lot of work for an apartment syndicator when I was in the construction business, and I understood that model. You know,
Okay.
John, you raise private equity, you marry it with a great real estate deal, you stay in the middle. As long as everything goes well, everybody makes money.
Mm-hmm.
So I went out in 2005. I raised $18 million. Didn't know a soul, but $60 million worth of real estate. It was 4,000 apartments in 5 markets, and did that in 30 months.
Wow.
And it was great. I built this, and then I also built a property management company managing 7,500 units. So I built a company about $100 million in volume, or in size. And 2008 rolled around, and it was like hitting a brick wall in a freight train at 200 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Many of your listeners remember 2008. It was a nasty change of scenery in the economic. The economic impact it had on the world was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So, my company started to come off the rails. I had grown very unstable. So here's some of the takeaways for the listeners, right? Is first of all, I grew this big company, but very fast. So I was very unstable. Always remember it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we need to take our time and be more methodical about what we try to do. I went and I grew very fast, very unstable. I was undercapitalized. I didn't raise enough money, and I was over leveraged. I had 75, I had $60 million worth of real estate at 85% loan to value. I should have been 65 to 75% loan to value. So wound up imploding. So I had 38 different companies, and I started to move money back and forth between companies. So I took money from profitable companies and put it in non-profitable companies.
Sure.
My accountant and my attorney both said it was okay to do that. When the market changes back, just put the money back, leave a paper trail, and put the money back. It's not illegal to move money, So we did that, and the problem was that I didn't disclose it to investors, and because of non-disclosure, I wound up being charged on wire fraud and mail fraud charges, and sentenced to 10 years in federal prison.
Wow.
And here's what I always tell people. I say, look, I never flew private. I didn't have a big boat. I didn't have a fancy house, no fancy cars. I was the neighborhood baseball coach. I was home every night for dinner. My wife and I had a great marriage. We were best friends. And I got ripped from that to live in a 12 by 12 room with 3 men I didn't know, nor did I like.
Jeez.
And wondering what the hell happened in my life.
Wow. Just quite a bit to unpack there. I mean, I think we've heard the, Bernie Madoff stories of, just flat out lying about returns, or, if anyone's seen American Greed, where they just take investor money and, buy that big car, big house, big boat, big, whatever, and just, swindle away the money. And in this case, you even said it's not illegal to move money from bank account A to bank account B. Where the trip up was, you just didn't say, hi, this is Mike, message to all my investors, just to let you know I'm doing X, Y, and Z because of the current economic climate. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, it was all non-disclosure. So.
Okay. I'm just curious, Mike, with that, was after this came about, I mean, I don't know, not to equate this to like a parking ticket or, getting pulled over, cop pulls you over. It's like, well, you didn't know, just, make the changes and don't let it happen again. Was this solely brought up from like the Department of Justice, or was there like an investor that, hey, wait a minute, he never disclosed this, I need to take this guy to court? Or, how did that come about after the non-disclosure piece?
So kind of a comedy of errors. We were doing business with another guy who got indicted on something he had done 5 years earlier.
Oh, geez.
And because we were named as a victim in his case, and then one of our investors went to the FBI saying, hey, we're trying to get our money out. And John, real estate's not liquid.
Right.
So we got investors that want their capital back, and you can't just give them their capital back. It's tied up in real estate.
Exactly.
So we had an investor that went to the FBI, and we came up in this guy's case. So then they started to investigate us, and because of the movement of money. And then some things happened, and we wound up being investigated and indicted as a result of that investigation.
Jeez. Okay.
So, here's the thing though. You could think, wow, I had all this success, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had all this loss. And, I made, several $1 million in a very short period of time. I had liquid cash in the bank. It was a very interesting time. And then all of a sudden it was gone, wiped out in about 9 seconds, right? I remember having lunch with my CFO. We were watching the news and watching people carry boxes out of Lehman Brothers by the dozen. I looked across the table and I said, we're screwed, aren't we? He goes, yeah, we're in big trouble. And I don't know that I knew the magnitude of that comment at that point. But here's what happened, right? I got indicted. And when I got indicted, I got ripped from this lifestyle of being a middle class, neighborhood guy to living in this environment, wondering every day how I was going to get through. What the hell happened in my life? And I was probably in prison about 3 weeks, and then my wife divorced me.
Oh, geez.
And that wrecked me. And I didn't know what to do at that point. So as that happened, I walked around every day just wondering, how am I going to get through? What am I going to do? How am I going to face tomorrow? How am I going to get through today, much less 10 years? 6 weeks in, I walk into the gym. And I always tell people, I pre-qualify this. Look, I was only window shopping. I wasn't looking to buy anything that day. But I'd gone from running marathons to being 35 pounds overweight. I absolutely hated myself. And I walk in the gym, and this guy walks up to me and he goes, hey, look, don't let these people beat you. All they want to do is take everything from you've ever known. They can take your real estate, your money, your apartments. They can destroy your family, but what they can't take is who you are and what you're made of. He goes, you can get that all back. He goes, come to my class every day, start working out. You'll start to feel better. As you start to feel better, and from losing weight, you're going to do better. He goes, and he was right. And I don't know what it was, John, but there was just that thing that clicked. And we all have those defining moments in our life somewhere along the line. And this was mine. And I started going to his class. I started losing weight. I started feeling better. And then I decided to go to college. I went to college. I got a bachelor's degree in theology. For 4 years, I studied. I wrote 2 books. One is Exit Plan, Your Complete Guide to Multifamily Investing and Why You Need an Exit Plan Before You Buy. Okay. I'd love to give a copy away to your listeners at the end of the show.
No, that sounds great. Yeah, I noticed it on their bookshelf back there. So
yeah, thanks. And then I wrote a book on property management. I wrote an ethics study course. So while I was gone, I taught real estate investing, property management, and ethics in prison for 6 years. And then I was on an outreach program, went into the community. I told my story 40 times to local business owners. And then I met a professor from the University of Minnesota, and he and I co-authored a paper together that we had published in the Business Journal of Ethics last year. It gets taught at the collegiate level for forensic accounting and sales and marketing classes. Okay. So I tell you all this because I wasn't about to let all this beat me, right? Today I'm home. I'm in the coaching and training business. I work with multifamily investors, real estate investors, teaching them how to build their portfolio, how to live a balanced lifestyle while doing it. I work with entrepreneurs, teaching them how to build their business, right? And I just recently was approved by the SEC to go back, be an issuer, sponsor of deals. We just put our first apartment deal together in Tampa, Florida. It's a 40-unit deal. And, John, I feel like I'm back in the game.
Wow. That is quite the story. And, kudos to you for, not letting, such a turnaround, get to you and being able to come back. And I'm just kind of curious, do you still have contact with the guy that said, hey, stop beating yourself up, don't let them beat you, and got you to working out and then, arguably where you are at now?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. About 2 months ago, I see him on Facebook. And
Okay.
about 2 months ago, I reached out to him and I said, hey, Kirk, I don't know if you know this or remember this or not, but you said this to me in prison when I was about 6 weeks in. You said, don't let these people beat you. And it's really funny. He said he messaged me back and he said, man, Mike, I don't even remember that, but you don't know how bad I needed that today in my life because I'm having a really shitty day.
Wow.
And so it was like, I believe things show up in our life. God's done such a work in my life. People say, how'd you get through? Well, the only way I got through was because of my relationship with the Lord and really focused on that and building my life around that. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, I was just thinking that. And, like I said, I think we've all had, times in our life where, someone says something to you that's extremely meaningful. And, sometimes the other person remembers it, sometimes not, but it's, just kind of funny how things turn around. And like you said, you reached out and say, hey, thanks for doing that. And I really needed that.
Right.
So
This week's podcast is brought to you by Focus Wealth Group. Do you know you need to get life insurance, but don't know where to start or how much to get? Have you heard of infinite banking, but not sure how it works? Reach out to Barry Brooksby and his team. Barry is not only a mentor, but a friend who has helped me for the past 6 years in my pursuit of cash flow and financial independence. Their mission is simple. They teach people how to make money and hold on to more money. Learn more and set up your free initial consultation at focuswealthgroup.com.
Mike, with this whole story, and I know you mentioned that you're starting to do the multifamily investing or syndication, in Tampa, Florida. As we're here in the beginnings of 2022, what are your, plans or what are your, desires for the rest of the year and, even going forward?
Yeah. So great question. I work with about 8 private coaching clients.
Okay.
A program that I have, an executive program that I have, but these are people that I work very closely with and they wind up partnering on deals with them. One of my coaching clients actually just went back in the property management business with them here in the Chicago market.
Okay.
So, I work with about 8 people on a private one-on-one, very close knit. But my goal this year is to acquire another 500 units.
Okay.
Partner with coaching clients and build a portfolio that we can create a real win-win situation and work with people on.
Perfect. So, and now with that syndication, or I should say those syndication opportunities, anyone partake in those, or is it like 506C, 506B, or?
Yeah, they're the last one we did was a B, but now moving forward, we'll do C's.
Gotcha.
Yes, but if you are an investor looking to place capital, definitely always raising capital and looking to grow that multifamily portfolio. It creates such a win-win for everybody involved. The limited partner isn't dealing with the daily trash, tenants, and toilets, and I love it. So my team and I come to the table and we handle all of that. And we know how to source and do deals in these really tough markets to get into. So when you look at a market like Tampa, Florida, where the rent growth is so high, and how do you get into that? Because everybody's trying to get in there, we have access. So
yeah, and I think that's probably definitely important now. I mean, I've read stories of the trader REITs, they're throwing almost just dumb money at multifamily and hey, a 1% cap rate sounds good to us, and we'll buy 12 of them. So anyone that kind of has maybe a insider's depth into it or knows some connections to really kind of have an edge over those versus just losing out to every deal, I think that's definitely important. So
yeah, for sure.
But with that being said, and I know we're approaching 14 years since the Great Recession, the Lehman Brothers, all the, I don't know, for lack of a better term, headaches and turmoil that we saw in the markets back in 2007, 8, and 9. I personally don't think we're going to have a repeat necessarily of that time, just with newer regulations, better underwriting criteria, and a little bit more stringency with Freddie, Fannie, and government regulations. But if there was like a word, words of wisdom that you could share, anyone that's either currently in investments or maybe looking to get into investments, what would you share that could maybe just help them be prepared for the next recession, hopefully not, maybe the next pandemic or whatever unforeseen things come up in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? And I'm not an economist,
Sure.
but I study these guys a lot, and I listen to a couple webinars a week or webcasts a week. And there's a couple guys out there I really like.
Okay.
The CEO of Marcus Millichap and Walker Dunlop, economist, and they really deliver some good knowledge to the table. So I believe that we're going to have a correction. Is it going to be as drastic as 2008? No, but we are going to have a correction. People need to be aware of it, and people need to just be in tune that it's coming and it's going to happen. So walk with your eyes wide open. I'm not a doomsday expert, and I by any means think that you should not invest.
Sure.
You should invest. So I always say there's 2 times to plant a tree, 20 years ago and today.
Yep. Yeah, I think the old adage, best time is 20 years ago and the second best time is today. And yeah, there's never going to be a perfect time. And, none of us are fortune tellers. We're not going to know, hey, on June 24th, 2005, the S&P will have a 30% correction, all hell will break loose. But, I think if we can all just take as many steps as we can to mitigate risk, have plan B or maybe even plan B, C, D, and E, I think all of us should be able to, weather any storm that comes up. So,
yeah, for sure.
Right. Now with that, Mike, if anyone's listening to this, I know you briefly mentioned your one book, but, what other projects are you, currently in? Or books or podcasts or seminars, and if anyone was interested in reaching out to you, learning more about your books and media publications or upcoming investments, what'd be the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, so I appreciate that. First of all, I'm pretty loud on social media, so you can find me anywhere your listeners hang out. Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I think it's a great business building platform. But my website, at mycoreintentions.com.
Okay.
And there you'll find all kinds of resources, free as well as, things you could subscribe to or pay for, right?
Okay.
Or invest in, I should say. But I do 3 boot camps a year. So those boot camps are around multifamily, understanding multifamily acquisitions, and property management. So those will be listed on the website there. And then I do a global summit once a year where I have 20 national speakers come to the table.
Oh, wow.
You don't just get me, but you get content from across the board of other professionals that are successful.
Cool.
So I always try to bring value and help your listeners, my listeners, grow, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that are new in the business, and how do we help them, scale their business, but not make the mistakes like I've made, right?
Sure. So, all right. And then those boot camps and the summit, are those held in warm tropical climates, or do you have them in Chicago and during the winter?
They're virtual. So if you're
virtual. Okay.
Yeah. If it's winter, you could turn your heat on. If it's cold, you can turn your air conditioning on.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, they are virtual events. And until this pandemic thing really kind of clears up, we'll stay virtual.
Okay.
Then we'll go to hybrid. So
okay. Sounds good. And then last thing, Mike, I know you mentioned if my listeners were interested in your book Exit Plan, what's the best way to find that?
Sure. They can go to my website at mycoreintentions.com/exit plan and download a free copy for themselves.
Okay, perfect.
And here's what I always tell people. I say, look, if you go to print it, I had somebody tell me one time, hey, I thought this was an EBook. It's 260 pages. It's a book. It's an EBook because it's online, but it's
right. Yeah, it's interesting. the Amazon Kindle stores, and I've read books per se as short as 35 pages, and as long as I think my top one was 1,200 pages. So it's just because it says an ebook just means it's online or an e-version of it. So
yeah, right.
Well, I appreciate you giving that out to my listeners, Mike, and for those listening to this, working around the house, working out, drive to work, whatever, I'll have all these links in the show notes for you to click on and refer to back later. Last thing before we go, any last things you want to mention to my listeners, Mike?
Yeah, just make sure you're underwriting cautiously today, that you are looking at all the fundamentals, that you are not exaggerating rent growth. When you walk into a market like a Tampa,
mm-hmm.
you see a range of rent growth from 28 to 38% this year.
Oof.
That doesn't mean that you have to write it at that.
Right. Yeah.
Try 5%. Try 6%. Be conservative. Be conservative in your cap rates. And if you're a private investor, I got a free publication out on my website, Jonathan, that people can go get. It's 27 questions to ask a sponsorship group.
Okay.
So, go and get, the questions that you need to ask in order to get the answers to help you, make smart choices, right?
Mm-hmm.
Smart choices today.
Yeah. I think Jim Cramer, this is on the stock market, but he always prefers companies, CEOs that do what he calls UPOD, where they under promise and over deliver versus have this, blue sky, 40% rental growth into perpetuity and no vacancy, et cetera. I think it's just best that scale that down, be a little conservative. And like you said, with the underwriting, be cautious. And hey, if you do get 38% growth every year, all the more power to you, but let's just not write that into the underwriting.
Right. We're going to see vacancy.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be in there. Write it in. Don't go 100% vacancy.
Yeah. And maintenance. I still see pro formas to this day where they don't write anything for maintenance. It's like, okay, I know it's new construction. I know it's, maybe pretty new, but it's like, water heaters go out before the warranty and things happen. A window breaks, or, you have to factor all that in.
Yeah, for sure. You're absolutely correct. So yeah, just walk cautiously, walk with your eyes wide open. So that's what I always tell people.
Exactly. Yeah. Walk with your eyes wide open. I think I'll have to remember that quote. So, all right. Well, this has been great, Mike, and I'm glad we finally had the chance to connect and, share some of your wisdom and obviously your redemption story with my listeners. Again, for those listening to this in audio format, check out the links below to get access to all the resources that Mike has available. Thanks again, Mike, for coming on the show.
Thanks, Jonathan, for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to share, rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. For more updates, check out www.wealthandfreedomnexus.com. Remember, nothing on this show should be considered tax, legal, investment, or professional advice. This show is produced solely for educational and informational purposes. Please consult an appropriate and licensed tax, legal, real estate, or business professional for specific advice for your situation. For distribution or publication rights or media interviews, please contact the host.